Diets are unsustainable. In every case where I went on a diet, I gained all the weight back.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
I'm your host, Hilda Labrada Gore. Our guest today is Richard Morris, a man who unsuccessfully tried diet after diet for weight loss. At one juncture, Richard weighed over 400 pounds. He literally would wake up most mornings asking himself, "Is today the day I die?" because he was in such miserable condition. Today you'll hear how he lost weight by ignoring the experts and through the power of real food. Richard, by the way, is one of the speakers at our Wise Traditions Conference this fall in Alabama. Wise Traditions is supported by Green Pasture Products, offering fermented cod liver oil, concentrated butter oil, and coconut oil in a variety of products and blends. Go to greenpastureproducts.com. And listeners like you, your donations and membership contributions help support projects like this podcast. And now, on to the interview. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Richard.
Thank you, Hilda. I'm glad to be here.
So I've heard people use the expression, "I'm a changed man," but I think you really are a changed man, aren't you?
Yeah, in my case, I meant that literally. Back in 2002, I weighed over 400 pounds and I was sick. I was pre-diabetic. I had asthma. I had high blood pressure. I was in really bad shape. And today, I lost most of that weight. I'm running obstacle course races. I'm signed up for a Spartan race. I'm running 5Ks and 10Ks and just really enjoying life.
Oh my goodness, what a drastic change. Wow, I'm blown away. 400 pounds, excuse me, but that sounds like a couple of people's worth of weight.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
Oh my goodness. Well, so tell us, first of all, how did you find yourself in that position of being so overweight?
So this is going to sound a little strange, but it sneaked up on me. I honestly had no idea how large I was. It's one of those things where there's that old story about putting, I think it's a crab in water on the stove and then slowly turning up the heat. And the crab doesn't notice it because the water heats up slowly.
Uh-huh.
I was gaining a pound here, 5 pounds there. I would look in the mirror and every day, I knew I was overweight, but every day I looked sort of normal. It wasn't until, I saw myself in a photograph or in video and I realized, wow, I've really gained a lot of weight. But it just sort of snuck up on me. I was never fully consciously aware of it.
What was the turning point? What made you realize, okay, now I'm aware and something has to change?
I was really sick. I was working in New York back in 2002, 2003, and I had to walk to work because in New York, everybody walks pretty much if it's not too far from office to your home. And for me, walking the several blocks to work might as well have been like walking 10 miles. Or better yet, climbing Everest. I mean, I would be out of breath by the time I got to work. One day, my knee gave out on me as I was stepping into the elevator and I almost fell down. I had all kinds of aches and pains. Just standing up was for more than 30 seconds or a minute was painful for me. I would wake up every morning and I would ask myself the question, is today the day I die? It wasn't hyperbole. I really didn't know if today was going to be my day. And so I realized I needed to do something different. And the thing that I did different turned out to be the food that I was eating.
When I read your struggles when you were overweight, my heart went out to you because I've never been that big and I didn't realize how painful things were. Like even you said the belt buckle digging into your waist and you're sweating profusely because your body is struggling to make you get to wherever you're going. I was surprised and my heart went out to you.
There's one thing that I didn't put in the book that because it was so painful. One day I got to work and because I was always just drenched in sweat by the time I got to work. So I get to work, I get to my desk and I open up a drawer and someone had placed a container of deodorant in there. And I know it was because, even though I was taking baths and showers and washing and trying to be as hygienic as possible,
Hmm.
that 4 or 5 block walk to work, again, I might as well have hiked, 10 miles. And I mean, that was just a really painful thing. I mean, despite all the other stuff that's in the book, that was the one thing that I just couldn't put in there.
Oh my gosh, that sounds very painful. And Richard, you said food made the difference. I'm confused. I thought food would have been part of the problem.
Food was part of the problem, but like a lot of things, it also turned out to be part of the solution. I worked in the software industry, and a factor of working in that industry is you spend a lot of time at your desk in front of the computer. If you're writing code, reviewing code, designing software, and there's not a whole lot of time to go out and eat. And the software companies, they understand, they want productivity out of their employees, and so they make eating very easily. So they bring in bagels and donuts, and the soda machine only costs 10 cents per soda, or it's free. And so it was real easy to just pile down a lot of junk food very quickly at work. I mean, I calculated that on some days I was putting away up to 7,000 calories.
And your colleagues were doing the same thing, I'm sure.
Yes, many of them were. It's not uncommon in the software industry to find overweight people.
Oh my goodness. So, how did you figure out, okay, the food I'm eating isn't the best. I need to change what I'm eating. Well, you must have tried a million diets, right?
I would say 1,000,001 diets. I talk about them in my book. One of the diets we did, I think it was the cabbage diet, and where you just basically eat a lot of cabbage, which is just a horrible way to live. And then there was I call it the exercise diet, where I was going to the gym twice a day, just burning myself up. And I actually lost weight, but diets are unsustainable. They don't work over the long term. And so I gained, in every case where I went on a diet, I gained all the weight back. I was a vegetarian for a year, lost some weight, and then gained it right back. So the change for me was one day on the way to work, walking to work, and I just felt so terrible. So much so that I decided I wasn't going to eat. I was just going to fast for that day. And I did that, and I felt pretty good by around dinner time. So I did go on and get some food, and it was basically some grilled or roast chicken and some vegetables. And I drank water with that, and I was pretty good. Woke up the next morning, I felt 50% better. I thought, wow, that was amazing. So I did it again a second day. And when I woke up the third day, I felt like a new man. I could not believe it. At first, I thought, wow, this must be some kind of magic chicken that I'm eating. But then I realized, no, it's not what I was eating. It's what I wasn't eating. I wasn't eating the potato chips. I wasn't eating a lot of the processed food out of the vending machine. And that's when the light bulb went off.
Now, in your book, you mentioned that your wife was struggling also, that both of you were kind of in this together, right? You were trying to lose weight, you were trying these different diets, nothing was working. How did the light bulb go off for her?
Well, that day that I did that experiment, by the third day, I thought, well, this is it. I've been eating all of the wrong foods. And so I got on the phone and I called my wife, who was back home in Virginia. I was in New York. And I said, I would like us to change the way we eat. I think we need to go back to eating the way our grandparents ate. Now, at the time, I weighed over 400 pounds. My wife was pushing 200 pounds. So we were both overweight. And it just so happened that she was sort of thinking along the same lines. She knew that we were both headed in the wrong direction. We have two girls, and they were gaining weight. And so we knew we were doing something wrong. So she didn't give me any pushback on it. She said, I think this is a great idea. So while I was still in New York, what she and my daughters did was they went through our kitchen cabinets and they took out every box, every can, everything that had a list of ingredients that you needed a laboratory to reproduce. Everything that you couldn't had items in the ingredients that you couldn't pronounce.
Uh-huh.
And from that point, we just started going to the grocery store and buying whole foods and then cooking our own meals.
Okay, so it took effort. It didn't just happen, you blink your eyes, hey, this is good. Tell me about, did you have cravings? Did you want to go back to the old stuff?
There was one incident. This was after we had made this change and we had been eating whole foods and cooking our own food, and the food was delicious. I forgot what home cooked meals tasted like. But there
Mm.
was this one day, this was some months down the road, and I had started losing weight. I was making progress, feeling good. But there was this one day I got off work, and it must have been a stressful day. So I stopped at the store and I picked up a bag of potato chips. And it wasn't a small bag of potato chips. It was like a family sized bag of chips. So, because I had this thing for chips. And so I'm eating this bag of chips as I'm driving home. And you can't eat just one. So I get through most of the whole bag and I'm eating this and I'm thinking, this doesn't taste good. Why am I still eating it? And instead of making me feel better like it used to,
Hmm.
temporarily, it just made me feel worse. Not just the sort of guilt about eating something that I knew that I shouldn't, but it literally did not taste good. And I think that's because my taste buds had changed, just my general idea of what tasted good had changed. I wound up crumpling up the bag. There were still some chips in it, and I just threw it on the floor of the car, and that was that. I was pretty much done with those cravings, and so the more I continued to eat whole foods, the more the cravings for some of those industrial, overly processed foods subsided.
Do you feel like the people around you were thinking, oh, this is another fad diet thing? He's going to go back to regular? Or do you think they could sense this was for real this time?
Well, nobody was really saying anything to me at work. At home, like one of the things that my wife and I did as part of this change is we would go for walks in the neighborhood. Our neighborhood, there was sort of a dead end street, so it was a loop. And so I would guess maybe about a half-mile loop that we would walk on. And so I had a next door neighbor who did comment that I was losing weight and looking better. But for the most part, people didn't, I didn't hear much from people.
Hmm. They probably didn't know what to make of it. And it kind of didn't matter anyway, right? Because you and your wife were feeling the difference. I bet your girls were feeling the difference.
Yes, we were. I mean, within a very short period of time, we felt better. I mean, really better. And there was a period where I was dropping 6 pounds a week. And it wasn't like I was counting calories really, or that I was exercising too much or anything. I was actually just going for walks in the morning. But the weight just fell off. And, success breeds motivation. And so feeling better, seeing myself get a little bit smaller, my clothes fitting better, that just kept me going.
And you were saying earlier that diets are not sustainable. What do you mean by that, Richard?
Diets don't last. I mean, I like to say that diets don't work long term. Diets can work short term, but really what you want is a long-term solution. I mean, who wants to lose weight and then not only gain that weight back, but gain extra, which is often what happens with people when they lose weight. So the approach to diet, to what you eat, I think needs to be something that is sustainable, which means it's got to be something that you can do not just for a temporary period of time, but something that you can do for the rest of your life.
And eating real foods, cooking at home, these are things that are sustainable, right? Talk to me about, did your grandparents really eat that way?
Yes, they did. I mean, my mother was an Alabama farm girl, and so she grew up in Alabama. Her parents were rural people. They did some small scale farming, more subsistence farming. On my father's side, it was the same thing. I never met my grandparents, but my mother would tell me stories about them. And even when I was a kid and my family still lived in Michigan, it was not uncommon for my father to go out on a Sunday and buy a live chicken at the market, and he'd bring that live chicken home, and my mother would slaughter that chicken, and we would have fresh chicken for dinner.
Wow. And then how is it that your family, or you, I will say, departed from that kind of real food, real eating?
I like to say that humans, it's just part of our species that we're a very efficient species. We're always looking for ways to streamline, to reduce the amount of work that we have to do. And so when you're surrounded. So my family moved from Michigan to Arizona. And so when you're surrounded by, cheap processed food, it costs less, and you get lulled into the idea that the economy cost is a higher value metric to rate your food by than the quality of that food. And then the other thing too, there was a period where we were pretty poor and we were getting government food. And basically what we were getting was corn syrup. We were getting white flour. I mean, it was basically all of the junk foods, the primary ingredients that most of the junk foods are made of. That's what was being given to people on public assistance. I used to make these sandwiches when I was a kid, 2 slices of white bread with corn syrup as the filling. And that was a sandwich. Sometimes I throw some peanut butter on there. But it was a horrible diet, but it was a diet that we were sort of forced into because of economics or financial situation at the time, but also because the culture just sort of moved us in that direction.
It's time to thank our sponsors, Green Pasture Products. Green Pasture Products produces fermented cod liver oil and concentrated butter oil in a variety of flavors in liquid gel and capsule form. They also offer organic virgin coconut oil, virgin coconut ghee, and a complete oil blend that includes all of the nourishing oils. Lastly, they produce skincare balms and various byproducts that enrich the soil and feed of farm animals. And listeners like you. On iTunes, Healthy Rebbe had this to say, I have so fully enjoyed each different informational episode. I look forward to Mondays now. Thank you for challenging us to take better care of ourselves and to pay attention to our bodies. Thanks, Healthy Rebbe. We appreciate all of the positive reviews we've gotten on iTunes, and we always welcome more. And now, back to our program. So, how did you reconnect with cooking and real food? Where did you turn for guidance?
Initially, it was just this sort of gut feeling. I had that experience and that successful experience in New York. So when I got back home to Virginia, I continued what my wife had already started after I called, and we just started cooking. I like to cook. I mean, if I could have a second life, I'd come back as a chef. And so I started cooking. We were all cooking. We taught our daughters to cook, and the food just tasted better. At the time, I didn't really know too much about diet and nutrition. All I knew was that, wow, this food tastes a lot better than the stuff that I'm normally buying. And I also figured out something else, that when you cook it yourself, when you make your own food, buy real ingredients and make your own food, it actually does cost less over the long term. So not only did we have good food, but we were saving money. Now, and when I say good food, at the time, I didn't have any farmer contacts. And so I was going to the regular grocery store, buying what really was industrial chicken, industrial beef, industrial produce, but it's a spectrum. You jump into this approach wherever you fit. And so if you've got the money to buy organic, or if you have local farmers that you can purchase for, then definitely go that route. But if you are like we were, where we didn't really know what we were doing at the time, we just knew we needed whole foods, then going to the regular grocery store is a good place to start. I like to say that an industrial whole egg is better than eggs in a box.
So true. It's a matter of taking those small steps to kind of upgrade your diet, right? Moving away from those labels with ingredients you can't pronounce and so on.
Right.
Once you got rolling, you started realizing, okay, maybe you did start to realize organic food may be even better for us. Then what did you do?
I'm an all-in kind of guy. So once I start something, I go whole hog. I jump in with both feet. So I'm all over the internet. I'm searching and searching. And then I stumbled across this organization called the Weston A. Price Foundation. And I thought, who are these people? And I'm reading at the website, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I've sort of been doing. This is what I've been thinking, but I couldn't articulate it at the time. But I thought, these people, they've got the information I need. So it just so happened that shortly after that, Sally Fallon was speaking. She was doing a talk somewhere in DC, I forget. And I decided to go. And I was just blown away, because all of the things that I sort of suspected was true about food, she was up there saying it. And I thought, this is it. So the Weston A. Price Foundation became my number one source for information about whole foods.
Oh my gosh, Richard, that is so cool. You were headed in the right direction, and then she does exactly that. She articulates what you kind of already know in your gut is the best, right?
Yes.
I love that about her. Not to mention the fact that she kind of glows with good health, and you think, yeah, I want to be like that.
Absolutely. And what I picked up from her in that meeting was honesty. I mean, I didn't feel like I was being sold. I felt like she really believed what she was saying, and everything she was saying made perfect sense to me. It synced with my own experience that I had had up to that point. And so I thought, for once in a very long time, I'm getting real, honest information.
And so how much time, talk to me about this process. So you had the chicken experience in New York, you started eating better, your whole family got on board. Then how many years before you were like, okay, I'm in the pink, I'm really feeling good? When did you start running races, for example?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit because from the day that I had that magic chicken to it was 18 months, a year and a half. And I lost, it was over 150 pounds. I don't know exactly what the number was. I like to say over 150. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't really noticed that I had lost that much weight until people were saying, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. And people were saying, you ought to write a book. So that was back in 2003. And believe it or not, I just got into racing late last year. I didn't think it was something that I would like, but I sort of stumbled into it. In my book, I talk about the 10 steps to success. And I think step number 9 was find your motivation. And it turns out that I'm just passionate about racing, about running. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just something that I connect with. That became just another motivator for me to stay on this path mm-hmm. of eating the foods that are more likely to yield good health for me. But it's also fun getting out there and running a 5K here, a 10K there. I just finished a 10-miler a couple days ago, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to doing a Spartan obstacle course race later this year.
And these Spartan races have more challenges, I guess, than a regular race, right?
Yes. Like the 10-miler I did was just your straight running 10 miles. The obstacle course races, the Spartan races, they have obstacles. It includes all kinds of stuff. You're in mud up to your hips. You're climbing 8-foot walls. You're on monkey bars. I mean, it's like a big kid's playground, but it's I'll tell you, at the end of that, it was 5 miles long. And at the end of that race, I don't think I've ever been as exhausted as I was then.
Now, does your wife join you on the track and on these Spartan races and such?
Nah, she's not so much into that extreme kind of racing, but we hike together. She loves hiking, and we live in a rural area, and so there's a lot of places to go for long walks. We'll typically do a 3-mile walk together, 2 or 3 times a week.
So it sounds like activity is a piece of the puzzle for you as well.
It's a big piece of the puzzle. There was a period when I was just solely focused on food, and we do need to take what we eat seriously. But I realized that food is not, what I eat is not disconnected from the rest of my life. All of our lives are complicated, and everything is connected to everything else. And I realized that there has to be a reason for eating good food, or at least I had to have a good motivation, a good reason for doing it. And so for me, eating good food was a way to fuel my racing. But even before that, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but my wife and I are small scale farmers. And so we raise pigs, chickens, turkeys. We have a laying flock of chickens, and it can be strenuous work. And so eating good food is a way to fuel us, to power us to be able to do that work.
A lot of athletes are looking for the perfect optimal fuel. I see ads in some of these shape magazines, and so, but again, I think a lot of them are looking for shortcuts, protein powders and energy bars, but you think real food is the fuel that your body needs to sustain and meet these challenges, right?
Right. I've read about the protein powders and I did try them for a while, but it seemed to me like I was probably wasting my money to some degree because I don't really know how much protein or how much filler is in those products. And why use protein powder when I'm producing high quality protein right here at home? I can go out to my freezer. I've got pork in the freezer from the pigs we've raised. I've got chicken. I've got turkey in the freezer. I've got beef that I've bought from other farmers. I've got eggs. I get a couple dozen eggs every day. For me, I found that real food is the best source of all of the nutrients that I need to fuel my life.
I'm sure your grandparents were more likely to eat those things than they were to have protein powders. If we're trying to go back, which is actually part of the mission of the Weston A. Price Foundation, not to go back, but to honor the traditions of our ancestors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I found that the more you process, any food, the more you're going to lose some of those core nutrients. I mean, you could wind up with something that tastes okay, but it's just not the same thing. And since I've been powering my activities with just real protein from good sources and real fat from good quality sources, my output has been better. This 10-mile race I just ran a couple days ago, it's been my best race so far. And it's because I'm constantly honing my diet and using real foods to get where I need to go.
And how old are your girls now?
So my youngest is 21 and my oldest is about to be 26.
And how is their health?
Very good, very good. There was a period when my oldest daughter was pretty young. I'm trying to think of this thing. It's when young girls start developing breasts at a really early age. I forget what that's called, but
some kind of early puberty, I guess. Right?
Yeah. And I remember my wife and I going to the doctor and saying, do you think it could be the food? And he just dismissed us and waved that away as, oh no, it can't possibly be that. So my next daughter comes along, she's born, and as she gets a little older, we see the same thing. But by then we realized we need to, because we were eating a lot of, industrial chicken. Mm-hmm. And so we stopped feeding her that and we switched to farmed chicken, pastured chicken, and the condition reversed itself. So I think it was the food. Mm-hmm. The chickens get growth hormones. Industrial chickens, in some cases, get antibiotics because they make them grow and make them fatter faster. So, there certainly was a strong associative connection between what we were feeding her and her health.
Well, yours is a marvelous story about not only your own health turnaround, but that of your family. Richard, as we prepare to wrap up, is there anything you would like to tell our listeners? What is one thing you would recommend they would do to improve their health?
I think everything starts with education. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for anybody. And so it really is on us as individuals to educate ourselves. Go to find a source like Weston A. Price Foundation, where there's lots of information there. And you can educate yourself. Don't just take anybody's word for what is best for you. Educate and then experiment. Lots of experimentation to find out what works.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for this talk. I'm going to recommend that people read your book and educate themselves about your experience and see what they can learn from it. Thank you for this time today, Richard.
You're welcome, Hilda, and thanks for the invite.
Thanks for listening today. If you like what you heard, please review this podcast on iTunes and let the world know. Also, you can find out more about our guests and today's topic by going to our website, westonaprice.org. Click on the word podcast to find more information and pertinent links. If you're interested in finding out more about healthy living in general, look for a Weston A. Price chapter near you. Again, go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the sidebar, find a local chapter. You'll find a group of like-minded people in your area that can help you on your journey to optimal health. Again, thanks for listening. Wise Traditions is brought to you by the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts.